let me be real with you. Loving a narcissist doesn't just break your heart, it rewires your soul. When you're an empath, you don't just fall in love, you give, you pour, you sacrifice. And with a narcissist, every ounce of that love gets turned against you. This isn't just about heartbreak. It's about identity, power, and survival. And once you've been through it, you will never see love or yourself the same way again. When an empath loves a narcissist, the dynamic is never balanced and it is never fair. An empath enters the relationship with the belief that love means giving without limits, that sacrifice is the highest expression of devotion, and that putting another person's needs first is the purest form of connection. The narcissist thrives on this exact trait, feeding on it, manipulating it, and twisting it until what once felt like a gift becomes a weapon turned against the very person who offered it. Overgiving is not simply a mistake. It is the slow erosion of identity. The empath pours, the narcissist takes, the empath forgives, the narcissist exploits, and the empath, convinced that love is proven through patience and compassion, often doesn't see the cost until it has already become unbearable. At first, it feels noble to give more. You think that if you just love harder, listen deeper, or sacrifice more, the relationship will finally balance out. You think your effort will inspire the narcissist to change, to meet you halfway. But the more you give, the more they expect, the more they demand, the more they convince you that you are still not doing enough. Your generosity becomes a trap, and the moment you pause to breathe, you are accused of being selfish, ungrateful, or cold. What once defined you as kind, hearted, and compassionate is reframed as weakness. In their hands, your empathy is twisted into a leash they pull at will. The most dangerous part of loving a narcissist is that the very act of overgiving blinds you to the reality of what is happening. Because you're pouring so much of yourself into the relationship, you don't notice how little is being poured back. You rationalize their absence, their lack of effort, their emotional withdrawal. You tell yourself they're tired, stressed, or wounded, and so you give even more, believing your love will fill the void. It becomes a cycle that leaves you drained and yet desperate to continue, because stopping feels like failure. Stopping feels like abandoning the very person you vowed to love unconditionally. But here is the truth: overgiving does not heal a narcissist. It does not inspire gratitude. It does not awaken love where love cannot exist. All it does is confirm for the narcissist that they can keep taking without consequence. They learn that your compassion has no boundaries, and so they push further, testing just how much you are willing to give up: your time, your peace, your dreams, even your sense of self. The danger is not only that you lose yourself in them, but that you forget you had a self before them. The lesson an empath must eventually face is that love is not proven by how much you can endure. Endurance in the face of neglect or abuse is not devotion, it is self-betrayal. Every moment you give more than you receive, you teach the narcissist that your needs don't matter. Every time you sacrifice without reciprocity, you reinforce the imbalance that keeps you trapped. And slowly, your spirit bends under the weight of this constant giving until you reach a breaking point. That breaking point is brutal, but it is also transformative. It is the moment you finally see that overgiving is not love at all, but the slowest form of self-destruction. The relationship with a narcissist strips away illusions in a way nothing else can. At the start, an empath often believes in the power of love to heal, to nurture, to transform. You go in with the illusion that if you simply love enough, understand enough, and sacrifice enough, the other person will rise to meet you with the same devotion. You hold on to the idea that beneath the coldness, beneath the arrogance, beneath the manipulation, there is someone good, someone who just needs the right kind of love to come alive. This belief keeps you hooked because you see what they could be, not what they are showing you every single day. And the longer you cling to that illusion, the more it costs you. Narcissists thrive on illusions. They are masters at creating them. They craft an image of themselves that is captivating, charming, magnetic. In the early stages, they may seem like the very partner you always dreamed of, mirroring your desires, reflecting your energy, drawing you in with promises that feel too perfect to resist. But this mask does not last. Over time, the cracks show and you begin to notice the inconsistencies, the lies, the gaslighting, the emotional absence. Yet because you are an empath, your instinct is not to run but to try harder. You convince yourself the mask was real and the coldness is temporary. You tell yourself the person you fell in love with is still there, hidden under layers of pain, waiting for you to bring them back. This illusion is powerful because it doesn't just distort how you see them, it distorts how you see yourself. You start questioning your judgment, doubting your intuition, second guessing your worth. Every time they dismiss your feelings, you wonder if you're being too sensitive. Every time they blame you for their behavior, you wonder if they're right. Slowly, your inner compass gets scrambled. What once felt clear becomes confusing. You stop trusting your own instincts and instead look to them for validation, approval, and direction. And in that dependency, they hold all the power. What you eventually realize is that the narcissist is not hiding some wounded, gentle soul waiting to be healed. They are exactly who they show you they are in the patterns that repeat day after day. The self-absorption, the lack of empathy, the hunger for control. The illusion was never about them changing, it was about you hoping. And hope, when misplaced, becomes a trap. That realization is devastating because it forces you to confront the truth that your love alone cannot rewrite another person's character. As painful as it is, the stripping away of these illusions leads to radical self-awareness. When you finally stop excusing their behavior, when you stop projecting your own kindness onto someone who refuses to reflect it back, you begin to see the cost of your denial. You see how much of yourself you abandoned in order to sustain a fantasy. And that clarity, though it hurts, becomes the very thing that sets you free. It teaches you to trust your intuition again, to believe the patterns you see instead of the words you are fed, and to value your own reality above the illusions someone else tries to sell you. That kind of awareness reshapes how you move forward, not just in relationships, but in every part of your life, because once you've seen through a narcissist's illusions, you can no longer afford to live in denial anywhere else. Pain in the hands of a narcissist feels relentless because it is not accidental, it is calculated. And when you are an empath, it cuts even deeper because you are built to feel everything at its fullest intensity. At first, the hurt comes in subtle ways, the small dismissals, the criticisms wrapped in jokes, the silent treatments that leave you questioning what you did wrong. Then it grows louder, sharper, more obvious, until it becomes a constant rhythm in the relationship, one you adjust to without even realizing it. You normalize the hurt because you want to believe it's temporary. You want to believe that if you just endure long enough, the love you once felt will return. But the pain doesn't fade, it multiplies, and over time it transforms you. This transformation is not gentle, it is forged in fire. Every insult, every manipulation, every moment of betrayal chisels away at your illusions and forces you to confront truths you never wanted to face. Pain becomes your teacher in ways comfort never could. It teaches you that not everyone is capable of love the way you are. It teaches you that no amount of giving can change someone who is committed to taking. It teaches you that endurance without boundaries is not strength, it is self-destruction. Pain sharpens your perception, strips away your denial, and reveals the reality you refuse to see. In the middle of it, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like breaking. You feel weaker, smaller, emptier than you ever have before. You feel like you are losing yourself piece by piece, but hidden in that breaking is the seed of transformation. Because when you are pushed to your lowest, when you are stretched past what you thought you could handle, you start to discover a resilience that only reveals itself under pressure. The very pain that felt unbearable begins to forge a toughness within you, a clarity, a refusal to be diminished again. Boundaries are born from this process. You begin to realize that your empathy needs protection, that love without limits is not noble but dangerous. You learn that not everyone deserves your patience, that not everyone should have access to the depths of your compassion. Pain forces you to build walls where once there were only open doors. It teaches you to say no without guilt, to walk away without explanation, to stand firm in the value of your own peace. These boundaries don't come easily, they are carved out of scars, but they become the armor that ensures you will never be used the same way again. What emerges from all of this is a strength that is quieter but far more unshakable than the strength you thought you had before. Before, your strength was in how much you could endure, how much you could give, how long you could hold on. After, your strength is in how quickly you can recognize the signs of manipulation, how firmly you can protect your energy, how unwilling you are to compromise your worth. This transformation is not about becoming hard or cold, it is about becoming wise. It is about keeping your empathy intact, but no longer allowing it to be exploited. It is about knowing that pain, as devastating as it is, can become the very force that reclaims your power and teaches you to stand in it without apology. An empath often enters love with the belief that giving without measure is the purest way to show devotion. In their heart, sacrifice is not a burden but a language, a way of saying I care, I see you, I am here for you no matter what. When that love meets another soul willing to give in return, it can create a partnership that is balanced, nurturing, and profound. But when that love is poured into a narcissist, the dynamic shifts from harmony to destruction. The empath continues to give, but instead of finding reciprocity, they encounter a void, a bottomless pit that consumes every ounce of affection, time, and energy without offering anything back. Over time, this imbalance is not just draining, it is eroding. Every relationship needs reciprocity to thrive, but with a narcissist, reciprocity does not exist. They will take your compassion as entitlement, your patience as weakness, and your forgiveness as permission to repeat the same wounds again and again. The empath stays, convincing themselves that their love is strong enough to change the cycle. Believing that if they give more, endure more, or love harder, the narcissist will finally see their worth. Yet that day never comes because the narcissist is not interested in partnership, only in power and control. The act of giving without receiving is not sustainable. It empties the soul until the empath begins to feel invisible, unheard, and unvalued. What makes it even more devastating is that the empath often blames themselves for this emptiness. They begin to believe they are not giving enough, not patient enough, not understanding enough. The narcissist fuels this narrative with subtle manipulation and outright blame, ensuring that the empath questions themselves while never questioning the relationship. This inner conflict creates a dangerous cycle of self-doubt where the empath continues to give even as they are being destroyed by the very act of giving. What is hardest to grasp in the middle of it is that love without reciprocity is not love at all, it is self-abandonment. It is placing someone else's needs so far above your own that you erase your identity to preserve the illusion of connection. An empath who continues to love a narcissist in this way eventually realizes that what they called love was actually a slow unraveling of their own soul. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the loneliness they feel even when they are not physically alone are all signals that what they are experiencing is not devotion, but depletion. The transformation comes when the empath finally accepts that true love must flow both ways. It must uplift rather than drain, heal rather than wound, and give life rather than strip it away. The empath begins to understand that their gift of deep feeling, of compassion, of selflessness is powerful, but only when it is placed in the hands of someone who values it. Loving a narcissist exposes the cost of misplacing that gift and forces the empath to see that boundaries are not unkind, they are essential. They protect not only the empath's energy, but also their identity and sense of worth. Once this truth is learned, the empath can never go back to loving blindly. They no longer confuse giving with losing themselves, nor do they mistake endurance for connection. They begin to demand reciprocity not because they are selfish, but because they have learned the devastating truth that without it, love is not love at all but self, destruction in disguise. Transformation after loving a narcissist is not about stitching yourself back together to look like who you were before. The version of you that entered the relationship, hopeful and trusting, does not survive the storm unchanged. What emerges is someone different, someone shaped by fire, someone who has seen the darkest corners of manipulation, betrayal, and exploitation, and has been forced to find strength in places you didn't even know existed. The pain of loving a narcissist does not simply heal, it forges, it reshapes, it leaves you forever altered in ways that are both haunting and powerful. At first, the change feels like loss. You grieve the old self, the one who believed in unconditional love without hesitation, the one who gave freely without fear of being taken advantage of, the one who trusted without question. That person feels gone, and the absence hurts. You may long for the innocence, for the purity of loving without caution, but that innocence was the very thing that left you vulnerable. The grief you feel is not only for the relationship, but for the version of yourself that was shattered by it. Yet within that grief lies the beginning of transformation, because in losing that self you start to rebuild one who is stronger, sharper, and wiser. The new you is not naive. You no longer ignore red flags, no longer excuse toxic behavior, no longer silence your intuition in order to preserve a fantasy. You have learned the hard way that silence and self-abandonment only serve the abuser, never the abused. Your empathy remains, but it is no longer uncontrolled. It is guarded, directed, intentional. You still care deeply, but you no longer confuse care with sacrifice. You still love deeply, but you no longer mistake obsession or chaos for passion. This shift is profound because it means you have moved from being defined by what you endure to being defined by what you refuse to tolerate. This transformation also reshapes your understanding of power. Before, you may have believed that strength was measured in how much pain you could handle, how much patience you could extend, how much love you could pour into someone who gave nothing back. After, you understand that true strength is measured in how quickly you walk away when your peace is threatened, how firmly you stand when your boundaries are tested, and how unapologetically you protect your worth. You become someone who no longer negotiates with disrespect, who no longer lowers their standards just to be loved, who no longer mistakes being needed for being valued. Perhaps the greatest transformation of all is the discovery that your empathy is not a weakness but a gift, one that only becomes destructive when given to the wrong person. Loving a narcissist forces you to see that your light can attract both beauty and darkness, and it teaches you to be discerning about where you shine it. You no longer hand it out freely to those who would use it against you. Instead, you save it for those who can hold it with care, those who reflect it back, those who understand its worth. The empath who survives a narcissist does not come out the same. They come out with scars, but also with wisdom. They come out with boundaries that once seemed impossible. They come out with a fierceness that coexists with their compassion. The transformation is permanent, and though it is born from pain, it creates a self that is stronger, wiser, and unshakably resilient in ways the old self could never have imagined.